Tiffany Lofton, who is the head of the Youth and College Division of the NAACP, also Spencer Overton, head of the Joint Center for Political and Economic Studies, and also head of the Urban Conservative Project, Liz Copeland, who joins us via Skype. And so glad to have all of you here. Just for Tiffany and Spencer, this is, again, one of those days that I don't care who you are, if you were alive at that time, you remember exactly that day, the moments you went through, especially if you lived in New York City or Washington, D.C.
Right. And so I think that's why it's so important to talk to Paula, to put a human face on it. There's so many political things in terms of who we're going to get back and what's the strategy and that kind of thing. But there is a real human loss here in terms of Paula and her mother, and just having empathy for that is incredibly important.
I remember, if I think about it right now, I was sitting in my AP history class in middle school. And my teacher got the intercom announcement about what took place at the 9/11 in the Twin Towers in New York, and he turned on the jumbo. We didn't have flat screen back then. I'm acting like I'm older than both of y'all. But we had the jumbo thick TVs. And they immediately turned the news on, and we watched the second plane go into the second tower. And being in middle school and I was in Los Angeles, California at the time, not recognizing how bad it was or what exactly was going on or happening, and then realizing or knowing that this is families that have lost their loved ones. This is friends who have lost their loved ones. This is partners who have lost their loved ones. And thinking about all the catastrophes that have happened since 9/11, because there have been a lot of them. Just like you said, Spencer, it's really important to make sure we paint a picture and tell the personal stories of folks who have been directly impacted and affected, because it's not just American history. People's lives are actually being impacted.
Liz Copeland.
Yeah, I recall the same thing, seeing the second plane going into the tower and thinking that it was a loop, that maybe they were replaying it and fully, getting the gravity of the situation. But I just want to talk about the aftermath. At that time, as a country, we really came together, but the images that I can see were, of course, first responders running into the building and, police officers. But to have a woman of color to also be associated with this event, this tragic event in our nation's history, is really important, because to me, it symbolizes, especially at that point in time, how we were all Americans. And while I am certainly not saying that we want to feel how we felt during that time, but afterwards, we believe that we should be concerned and take care of our neighbors. And I don't believe we have those same sentiments in 2018. I certainly am not arguing that we need to have a terrorist attack on our soils to prompt us to get back to that point, but I do remember that time.
Well, one of the things that also, when you talk about on this day politically, it was startling to have to wake up today. And the first tweet from the President of the United States is complaining about Russia.
Right, right.
And obviously somebody said, dude,
right,
it's 9/11. And so a few minutes later, it's the second one. But you're sitting here going, so, I mean, how weak are you that on this day, when it shouldn't be about you?
It's not all about you.
Right.
That's right. It's not just about you.
Yeah.
And it's just,
what's upsetting about that and what's irritating is that I've over the fact that it's about, that he thinks that it's about him. I'm more concerned about the people that are around him that don't check him or have no power or no influence over him to say, hey, don't forget tomorrow morning is 9/11.
Right.
Your first scheduled tweet, because we schedule tweets nowadays. We don't just do off of impulse like 45 does. And so somebody should be able to tell him the night before, hey, your first tweet tomorrow is 9/11. It's been 17 years. Let's make sure that we acknowledge the families and loved ones. And someone who claims to be so about pro-American and so about patriots and so about the war and so about everything, someone who you would think would be the first #1 champion to say, you taking a knee, but I'm going to tweet about 9/11 and the families that were lost. Like, his mind is completely gone, but his staff and his team weren't smart enough to tell him this morning, hey, your first tweet should be about 9/11?
And Liz, even go ahead, Liz.
Yeah, I mean, to Tiffany's point, I think it is reflective of our president's tone deafness. But I do want to push back on the staff that are in the room. I would argue that they're not stupid and that they know very well what the expectation is, what the tone is that should be coming out of or reflected in the president's statements and his, whether it's through Twitter or through his spokesperson, that it should be focused on this day as a day in honor and memory of those people who lost their lives and everyone who was impacted by this. But he is unchecked. And that's one of the things that's fearful about this president. While he might have people in the room who know better, who are going to advise him to do better, he doesn't have to do better. because there's no one who has, especially in his position, more power and more authority than him.
Well, I just think it's, I mean, again, it's pretty much childish, but that's what we can certainly expect from the one sitting in the Oval Office. And again, I keep saying I can't call somebody president if you can't even respect the office yourself. He's also getting lots of criticism along with his wife Melania for posting images of themselves about 9/11. It's like you're using a photo and also using a photo from last year. And so, I mean, goodness, you think you could use an image of the World Trade Center or whatever.
Anything.
But again, but this is sort of what we have to deal with and expect here in this country. All right, folks, hold tight 1 second. When we come back, we're going to talk about this new report from the Joint Center for Political and Economic Studies that details the lack of black folks in top positions in the House. Democrats, what's up with y'all treating black folks like political sharecroppers? Oh, yeah, I'm going to explain that when we come back right here, Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Human dignity is more precious than prestige. Author Claude McKay.
All right, folks, here is the lead headline in this new report detailing the hiring of staff in the U.S. House of Representatives. New report finds people of color nearly absent from top staff positions. Now, you might remember, of course, last year we talked about the United States Senate and their lack of black folks being in top positions. Other findings of this report, the American public, more likely to elect a person of color to the House than members are to hire top staff of color. Of 329 white members of the United States House, 16 have chiefs of staff of color. More Republicans than Democrats. Over a quarter of members represent diverse districts but have no top staff of color. No Latinos hold top positions as well. Spencer Overton, you, of course, head of the Joint Center for Political and Economic Studies. And so this is, so explain, Republicans have more top staffers of people of color than Democrats.
More top chiefs than Democrats.
Chiefs of staff.
Chiefs of staff. That's absolutely right. And a big issue here is white Democrats in particular, right? The bulk of the top staff who are black come from the CBC. So like 85% of the Democrats' top staff comes from CBC members. But if you look at white Democrats, only 2% of their top staff is black. Now just, you know, think about this. 21% of Democratic voters are black folks, right? And so there's a reliance on black voters, but very few top staff are black for white Democrats.
And this is precisely why, Tiffany, they have to be called out and put on Front Street and challenged. And I use the phrase political sharecroppers for a reason, because what they want is they want black folks, just like white plantation owners did, wanted us to till the land, work the land, deliver the crops, but then don't want to pay. And so Democrats want to get votes, want us to get out there and campaign and deliver them to the promised land. But when it comes to getting contracts, when it comes to getting jobs and opportunities, it's okay, we'll see you later.
Right. Well, what's interesting is, one, not only were Republicans more likely to have people of color who were chiefs of staff, it was only 10. I saw the number for Democrats is only 6.
Right.
So that's 16 people that are chiefs of staff, and that's not a lot at all when you talk about the House.
Folks, yeah.
For white folks, when you talk about the House at all. We're not talking about black folks. We're talking about people of color.
People of color, that's right.
That's another thing. I wonder what the gender demographic of this looks like, right?
So interestingly, 61% of black top staff are women. With Latinos, it's about 45% of women.
Okay.
It's about 25% in terms of Asian Americans.
Yeah, see, and so when I think about those numbers, which is really alarming to me, because I think about the folks who are actually doing the work of connecting with the constituents on the ground, those folks need to represent and come from those communities. And a lot of those communities that we're talking about are people of color.
Right. And those white Democrats, they're not in all white districts, right? So the average white Democratic district is 37% people of color, right? But they just have very few people of color in top positions.
Liz, you would think that this is a story to tell for Republicans, but even they can probably screw that one up. And this, but this goes to again, what happens in our politics where black people, and again, for anybody who's watching, I need you to understand how all of these things are connected. What happens is, if you're not getting these top positions among these positions in the House, what then happens is you're not then getting the jobs after you leave Congress. So when it comes to lobbyists, when it comes to PR shops, when it comes to all of these particular places, you're not getting any of these jobs. And so we're frozen out of those opportunities, which is how we're able to build and create wealth.
Right. I couldn't agree more. And so when I looked at the actual study when it came out of the members of the House, it was those who had districts that were 33% black, and you know the breakdown there. But as a black Republican, I'm looking at this report and I'm looking up Will Hurd in Texas 4th, or Will Hurd in Texas 23rd, Mia Love in Utah's 4th, and they are both African American Republicans. Both of them the first black Republicans from their respective states to actually make it to the House, and they were not on the list. And so then I looked at the areas that they were representing to see if, well, you know, what are the demographics of those areas? And both are coming from majority white districts. And so there could be an argument made that they're going to have individuals in their staff that's going to be reflective of the district, but I don't buy it. Being a double minority, you know, a minority in my political group and often a political minority in my ethnic group, I think it's incumbent upon black Republicans to make sure, to your point, Roland, that black Republicans are in the chief of staff position, because they're the ones that are tapped to be able to go to these foundations, to these lobbying firms, these law firms. And we need, I've always said it, we not only need representation, but power in both parties. And you can get to that you can get to that power either through the elected official role or as a chief of staff or as a thought leader and be in the room. And so I think they failed, specifically Congressman Will Hurd and Congresswoman Mia Love.
Well, here's the thing that we have to understand right now, and that is with the elections that we've seen take place, when January comes, you're going to have more than 50 members of the House Democratic Caucus who are in the Congressional Black Caucus.
Right.
The CBC is the largest caucus on the Democratic side.
Right.
And it's telling that if they can't find black people, and look, I'm not saying people of color, okay? I'm saying black people. You can't, and also, first of all, define top positions. So chief of staff.
Chief of staff, legislative director, communications director, right there, but then also staff directors for committees. And then we looked at the leadership offices like Pelosi's, et cetera, chiefs of staff, policy directors, and communications directors. So
okay, so on the Democratic side, for Nancy Pelosi.
Right.
What they got?
So now she does have a communications director who's African American. Right?
Steny Hoyer.
No.
Joe Crowley.
No. Also Steve Cohen, Tennessee, Memphis. No black, no of color top staff. Yeah.
Wow.
Right.
Clyburn is obviously in leadership.
Yeah, he is in leadership, and he has Yebby, right, in terms of chief of staff, so he has a person.
And again, and I know somebody at home is thinking, look, okay, that's all political. No, they don't understand.
Why it matters.
When you start talking about jobs that are paying, not just jobs that are paying six figures, but also when they go hire somebody who's a top staffer, they then hire them and then come set up their offices. They now can then hire 10, 15, 20, 30 people. And then if you don't have any people of color, any black folks, well, you're never going to get those kind of jobs.
And they also help decide what's the priority of the office is going to be sometimes as well, right? So when my student organizations have actually gone and done lobby visits, we're not usually meeting with the Congress member when they can't meet. We're talking to the legislative director or we're talking to the chief of staff person. And so when I think about that role, it's like, well, how much agency? And I'm not making the color of your skin synonymous with the priorities that you're going to have, because we've seen that be different too, and not always be on our side. But it's important for us to think about what are the opportunities that are being shown up for people of color in high positions and high offices in our government that are not just elected officials, but those who actually make those decisions.
Spencer, then Liz.
Yeah. The CBC, though, is
carrying... Liz, 1 second. Go ahead, Spencer, then Liz.
The CBC is carrying Democrats in terms of diversity still. So
no
about
shot.
53% of CBC's top staff is black. And you compare that to 2% of white Democrats' top staff being black. So CBC has a healthy number of top staff who are black.
Liz?
Yeah, I know this is timely with the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation Annual Legislative Conference. I know that this is timely, but Spencer, I'm really interested to know what's going on in the Senate. Are you guys doing
Right.
any data and research on that?
Yeah, we did do a report on the Senate, and we found that there was very little diversity on the Senate side. So on the Senate side, it's about 7% of top staff are people of color. On the House side, about 13% of people of color. But see, always the assumption was there's no problem in the House because you got the CBC, you got the CHC. But there is a problem when you say that people of color make up almost 40% of the population in this country, but they're only just over 13% of top staff. There is a problem.
What's next?
So the next piece will be focusing on this fall in terms of November and after November. There will be a lot of openings. And how do we get people to hire both top staff of color and then also mid-level staff of color who can move into those top positions?
All right, let's go to our next story, folks. Colin Kaepernick, of course, is still being talked about. Nike, of course, released their Just Do It commercial. He is the face of their 30th anniversary campaign. Kaepernick, of course, who has not played in the NFL since 2016. Last year, his jersey was still in the top 50 of all jerseys, player jerseys purchased. The folks were buying his San Francisco 49ers number 7 jersey. Well, instead of buying that jersey, Kaepernick actually released his own. It's a black jersey, the number 7. It is called I'm with Cap. You see it right there. It is all stitching. The adult jersey is $175. The junior jersey is $100. He put it up on his site yesterday. Then this happened. Out of stock. They sold out literally within minutes. Now, all the earnings will be sent to his Know Your Rights Camp, a free campaign for youth funded by Kaepernick, intended to raise awareness on self-empowerment and interacting with law enforcement. And so, and in fact, if you on Instagram, T.I. posted under that, he said, Cap, when you get some more, I need 12 dozen. Do the math, y'all. That's 25 grand worth of jerseys. And so I was texting Colin Kaepernick that last night about this. I was like, because I've been asking him for 3 months, like, dude, where's the jersey? Because I'm not wearing Houston Texans gear. Right. And he's like, man, the jerseys are coming. Jerseys are coming. And literally, he sends me the text. He's like, man, they all gone. I was like, bruh. I'm like, bruh, what's up? Like, where are the jerseys? Right. You know, but to sell out is real good. And also, just so y'all know, so get a shot of this. And so this here, of course, is an art piece. Just so y'all know where we stand here, and see if you can get a shot of that. The art piece on the wall. And so I was presented that particular art piece yes, I know I'm throwing y'all a curveball. Yes, I am. Milton Bowens, y'all, did that art piece that's on the wall there. He's in Sacramento. I gave a speech there for Mayor Kevin Johnson. And this was a piece that he actually did just for me. And as you can see, he has, of course, John Carlos and Tommy Smith, Muhammad Ali, their images, and, of course, Colin Kaepernick as well. And so we have that hanging here in the office. Now, what's interesting also, there's some conservative university that announced that, again, they're not going to allow any Nike gear. And I had, of course, I had to tweet homeboy. Liz, go ahead. It's amazing to me. You got the mayor in Louisiana, and I got to pull up again this guy. Who's a conservative president of this university, saying, oh, we're not going to have Nike gear because how they're disrespecting the troops. I guess he never heard of #Veterans for Kaepernick.
Right. I think look, the conservative university, the mayor sending out a memo to his Rexham Park or something along that saying that we are not to buy any Nike paraphernalia. It's just, at this point, I think it doesn't bode well for conservatives who, present themselves as being constitutionalists and defenders of your First Amendment right, opposed to Colin Kaepernick exercising his First Amendment right and saying what he feels and being passionate about that. At this point, I think we really need to move beyond the conversation and this whole up or down about whether he was disrespecting the flag or disrespecting, the armed forces, and kind of really move beyond, how we can resolve the issues that he was bringing attention to, which is police brutality. And I know, we're supposed to be talking about.
But they don't want to do that. Liz, they don't want to have that conversation because what they want, because they don't even want to own up to the fact that every time a police officer who has beaten somebody, who has brutalized somebody, there's an American flag that's on their uniform. They don't even want to own up to that. It's on their uniform, and they're doing it under the color of the law.
Right. I mean, look, there's no defense there for the hypocrisy that you can see. The reality is, as a conservative, I believe that he has the right and he should exercise his First Amendment to speak out when he sees injustice. And I think that, you're just being a hypocrite when you say that he shouldn't have done that. And Nike, I say it again, they not only made a business decision to bring him in on that campaign, but they also are saying publicly that we support this social justice issue. And they're going to fare. I just think it's ridiculous that people are burning their shoes and everything that's related to it.
They get stuck on stupid.
The right to decide.
Spencer, go ahead.
And Liz, the hypocrisy is not just the First Amendment piece. It's this notion of, let's say, being a libertarian and being free from state oppression, and this notion of sanctioning violence against black folks. This notion that we are going to block out that black lives have value, right? We're going to block that
up. Extension, Spencer. They didn't say anything about black lives not having matter. What they said was, this is a company that supports a message that they don't agree with.
Who is they? Because I've heard that multiple times.
No,
who is they? Because I've heard that multiple times. And my issue is this: we think about how the movement for Black lives and how organizers and civil rights organizers have been doing this work for a very long time. We saw the fluke and whack march that took place with white supremacy here in D.C.
Right.
It didn't go the way it was supposed to go. Colin Kaepernick sold out of his jersey in less than a couple of hours. That's a sign. We are electing black people and people who represent people's voices in the primaries this year. And the movement is currently working, and people are upset, salty, and mad about it, and I don't care.
Speaking of salty, this guy who's the president. This guy who's the president of Truett McConnell University, again, it's conservative university, Emir Caner, he goes, so his university, we're no longer going to be wearing any Nike gear. America has sacrificially given my family the freedoms we enjoy today. My wife, who was raised under the oppression of socialistic communism, became a citizen 5 years ago, joyfully pledging allegiance to these United States and her flag. Then for Nike to then hire Colin Kaepernick, a person known for wearing pigs on his socks, mocking law enforcement, kneeling against our flag, and mocking our troops is reprehensible to my family and to the Truett McConnell family. But I've never seen Emir Caner say anything about police brutality.
And that's the issue.
I've never seen him join a Jim Wallace or Father Michael Flager or other white ministers standing up for folks who are being beaten. They call themselves pro-life, but they say nothing when somebody's life is being taken who was shot unarmed by a cop. So I'm like, I don't want to hear their BS.
Yeah, there is no acknowledgement in that statement that you just read about black life.
Right. I mean, of course, because they're not going to say that.
Yeah.
So, Liz, your final comment on this topic.
I just restate that they have the constitutional right to be as ignorant as they choose to be and to have actions that are just, I think, stupid related to burning Nike equipment. And we should continue to respect and honor Colin Kaepernick's decision to exercise his rights to speak out on injustice.
All right, folks. We're going to go to a break right now. We come back. We're going to talk about with Deborah Owens, America's wealth coach, Kevin Garnett.